In today's show, more basketball is coming to Portland. We're about to be a year-round round ball community. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen. Coming at you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, taking a little break from our player previews. We've been running down every player on the roster as we get closer to the actual basketball games happening. But as not to beat you over the head with player previews every single day, give it a little change of pace in today's episode, we're going to hit some of the bigger news stories that are admittedly a little Blazers adjacent. So we'll start talking WNBA. It's coming. Blazers got new jerseys that I think are worth at least worth discussing. Besides, we're in a weird phase with jerseys in the NBA's merch obsession. And then we'll say goodbye to Adrian Wojnarowski, who is going to do less stressful things. But I think there is some implications for how we will digest NBA news and Blazers news in particular now that Woj is stepping away. Let's start talking the WNBA, though. Officially official. The WNBA announced today, or held a celebration press conference announcement today at the Moda Center here in Portland, announcing that the Blazers have been selected to become the 15th city to have a WNBA franchise. The Portland unnamed WNBA team will begin play in the summer of 2026. This is news that I think we knew was coming. The question was when. Last fall, the Blazers were very close to getting awarded a WNBA franchise, and then it fell through at the last minute because the ownership group that was going to be awarded the team just didn't have the money. Dude ran out of money, and so it fell through. That team ended up getting rewarded to the Bay Area, and then another team eventually awarded to the Raptors. But it was reported first by the Oregonian, or earlier this summer, in the spring rather, that there were two very serious groups. It was earlier this summer. Two very serious groups that the WNBA was considering, and that expansion of the WNBA into the Portland market looked to be very close. It just was a matter of which group the WNBA went with, and then they moved forward with it. And then about 2 weeks ago, Sean Highkin of Rose Garden Report just said, "We're not waiting on anything. This thing's done. We're ready to go." A couple weeks ago, Sean reported that was the first to report that the Bethal family, which owns the Portland Thorns here in Portland, as was granted the new franchise. They're going to be the owners, obviously independent of the Blazers. It's a separate family. They're in the NBA, adjacently. Their parents, it's a brother-sister duo, and then their father is one of the owners of the Sacramento Kings. But they own the Portland Thorns. They bought the Portland Thorns from Merritt Paulson. They're a team that's rich people that already own a sports franchise in the city, and now they've been awarded the WNBA team. This is cool. This is good. This is they're going to play at the Moda Center. There's some slight, there'll be some logistics stuff that needs to be worked out because the Blazers have stated very openly that between now and 2030, they plan to do some renovations to their arena. They have one of the oldest arenas in the NBA. It doesn't feel terribly old until you go to one of the new arenas in the NBA, and then you're like, oh, dang. Yeah. You're like, oh, the Rose Garden is old. But it's not totally crappy such that they would tear that bad boy down, but they need to fix the guts a little bit. I would say the worst thing that can happen to a city is to have their team feel like they play in a crappy stadium. That starts to put taxpayers in trouble, y'all. And we should never pay for professional sports teams in our city. I strongly believe that. Let the billionaires do the paying. But the Blazers are going to renovate the arena at some point over the next five summers. And now all of a sudden, 4 of those next 5 summers are going to be occupied by Portland WNBA team. So you would assume they do some of it next summer in 2025, and then we'll figure something out in one of the other summers into the future, because they want to be ready in 2030 to potentially host the women's Final Four. But, so we're 2 summers away. It's going to be the WNBA team It's going to play in the Moda Center in 2026. What this really means, I think, for you, Blazers fan, is that we're going to get to watch basketball all year round, and that's going to be cool. The WNBA is in a weird place because I think the product is really, really good, but like because of the sort of nature of Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese existence, it's like trapped in this bizarro culture war with people who don't even follow the league that closely. But I think that's also like, in some ways, it is proof that the WNBA is gaining more traction because the stuff that people are talking about, it doesn't exist on the court, which is kind of like when you're watching a Raptors Celtics game and they'll be like, what does this game mean to LeBron's legacy? And like, okay, the NBA is here. We're doing stupid stuff. The WNBA kind of obsessing over off-court things and blah, 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 sort of like bigger narrative stuff is like proof that the league is gaining some like sort of a massive traction. But the league itself is in a great spot and needs to get bigger. The rosters probably need to expand. There's more good women's professional basketball players that can fit in the WNBA. So in 2025, we're going to get a team in San Francisco, the Valkyries. And then in 2026, we're going to get the Portland team and the Toronto team. I believe the Toronto team is yet unnamed. If they are named, send me an email, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. But I believe they are also yet unnamed. So that would move the league to 15. The Blazers are the 15th franchise. Eventually, they'll get to, the WNBA has stated that their goal is to get to 16 teams by 2028. That's good for the league. The WNBA is the best league in the world. The only thing holding it back is that it's just quite frankly too small right now. There are, players get drafted in the second round and then like don't make a WNBA roster. That's no good. There's just not enough roster spots for as many talented people. And WNBA is massive, does major TV numbers. It's like massively popular, particularly relative to where it was a few seasons ago. And Portland will, they'll get in on a league that is on the rise, growing in popularity, and has quality basketball. Like I've watched a bunch of WNBA games, probably less this year than I did a season ago, but like the basketball, I enjoy the WNBA more than I enjoy the G League. I'll tell you that much. And more importantly, it starts as the NBA season is winding down. As we get to the end of the playoffs, the WNBA season starts up, and then it runs like we're about to start the playoffs this weekend in the WNBA. They start Saturday, so like you get professional basketball. If the Blazers, I'm so used to talking about a team called the Blazers on this stupid show. That I can't help but do it. If the WNBA team is like a team that plays a playoff series, gets in the mix in the postseason, then you're going to basically get from the moment the NBA season ends to the moment it starts professional basketball here in the city. I'm certainly going to go to games. It's going to be a whole bunch of fun. I'm excited. This doesn't, other than that, like this isn't Blazers news. This is good news for basketball fans in the city. When Kathy Engelbert, who is the WNBA commissioner, spoke at the it wasn't really a press conference. It was more like a celebration of the WNBA with some media afterwards. But when she spoke to the media afterwards, it was like, she said like some of their market research suggested that the Blazers or that Portland was one of the best, underserved sports cities the WNBA could expand to, like the market that was going to have the highest quality of sort of fans to fit what they wanted, right? Like that Portland really fit what they wanted. Portland is a good sports city. I think what you'll hear people say is that Portland supports women's sports really well, and they do. The Thorns do really well. Thorns games are packed. They're fun. They're great. I've been to several. They're a ton of fun. That's true. But Portland is also just a good sports city. The reason the WNBA team will do well is because it's a good sports city. Like the Timbers do really well. The Blazers were very bad last year, and like we're middle of the league in attendance. We're talking like the tickets get more expensive, the team gets way worse. They trade away Damian Lillard, and they're still like middle of the road, slightly above average in reported attendance. I will say that the arena was more empty than I recall it being last year, but that's reported attendance and actual attendance are a little bit different. But like the freaking Winterhawks, the AHL hockey team that plays in Memorial Coliseum, I don't know what their tickets are now, but back in the day when I was on the beat, like they did pretty darn well in terms of tickets. It's just a good sports city. We're going to support this team because we are a folk that loves sports. And let me pitch this to you. You get a 6 p.m. tip-off on a beautiful Portland summer evening. Game ends at about 8:15. You walk out to a Portland summer night where you got about another hour, 75 minutes of daylight left. It's a beautiful summer evening. You just watched your Portland basketball team the Fire 2.0, the Portland Torch 2.0, win a game, and now you're just like out and about in the center of town. And I don't think being in the Rose Quarter is actually that much of a reward. Unfortunately, you're stuck in the Rose Quarter, but like you'll out and about on a beautiful summer evening. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It wouldn't have been as good as maybe having 80 baseball games, but we can still dream. But you'll get 20 WNBA games, and maybe you hate baseball and you love basketball, so you disagree. I'm just saying, like, one of them is played outdoors would be my argument here. But like, yeah, like you're gonna get 20 home games. It's gonna be fun. I will definitely attend a bunch of games and take my family with me. I cannot wait. I probably won't talk about the WNBA again. This is a Blazers podcast. I didn't talk about it, last summer when it was kind of falling through. I didn't talk about it when the Oregonian reported that it was happening. I didn't talk about it when Sean a couple weeks ago, Sean Highkin of Rose Garden reported a couple weeks ago that it was a done deal and the Blazers were getting it, or Portland was getting WNBA team, and because this is a Blazers show. This is a Blazers show. This is. I want to talk about it because this is a big day and a big moment and fun to celebrate. But I can't imagine, certainly not until they're playing games, but if I'm still doing this in the summer of 2026, this is a Trailblazers podcast. We won't talk about the WNBA again, but I'm excited. I hope you are too. Okay, what else I'm excited about is that the NBA, that would be the MNBA, released a bunch of new jerseys and everyone hates them, and it's a tradition like any other. Let's talk about that wonderful tradition. Join me in the second segment, won't ya? First, though, I want to tell you about Gametime. It's a place for last-minute tickets. It's the place that rewards you for procrastinating. You want to go to a sporting event or, comedy shows, live theater, whatever performance you're looking for, you can find it on the Gametime app. What I like about Gametime is super, super simple to use and it's clean. The app is clean. It is just like a couple clicks. I search, sporting events, Portland area. For me, I'm watching soccer games at the aforementioned Timbers and Thorns. And in 3-4 clicks, bing, bang, boom. I'm looking right there at the venue on my phone. I can pick my seats, and I toggle all-in pricing on the app. I like to look at it in the all-in pricing feature. So that way what I see is what I get. I know exactly how much I'm going to pay. There's no surprise fees at checkout. $67 is what it says on the screen. $67 is what I pay when I go to check out. So Gametime is going to, they remove the guesswork from buying tickets. They make it simple for you. So if you want to remove the guesswork from buying tickets, go ahead and do that with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. You get $20 off your first purchase. That's easy. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Use the redemption code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKONNBA. It's all lowercase, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime! All right, let's chat about these jerseys, folks. Here's the thing that happens in the summertime on the internet. Somebody leaks some crappy images of new NBA jerseys for the upcoming season. This is like a September tradition unlike any other. Oh, here's some low quality JPEGs of 30 jerseys, or maybe like one low quality JPEG that you have to zoom in on. And then the internet hates stuff. That's like a normal thing that like in the digital age, is that everyone's mad. Then they say, this stinks, I can't believe it. And then this is like classic jersey stuff, is that a few days, hours, weeks later, the actual jersey gets released in like high quality retail photos that are going to like actually be, printed and sold and, used to promote and sell these items, or they're like from the teams themselves. So they're like taken professionally by the best photographer on the West Coast, Bruce Ely. So they're like, and staff. And so it's like, yeah, these look a lot better than they used to. I thought these sucked and now they look nice. And I kind of think that happened a little bit with the Blazers jerseys. I think here are my thoughts. I'll bring up the jersey itself if you're watching on YouTube, because I guess it's worth looking at. If I'm going to talk about it, we should look at the jersey. There it is if you're watching on YouTube. If you're an audio listener, I'll do my best to describe it. It's black with sort of like the hint of plaid. I believe they call that sublimated or something limated. It's like dots. rastered. There's a word for it. Like dots in a white dots on a black jersey. It says Rip City across the chest in white script in a red outline, red piping down the sides, white piping on the shoulders. It's like, you've seen this jersey before. They basically wore it last year. It looks pretty similar to the thing they wore last year. You remember these jerseys, and that's kind of my take here. I like that the Blazers do Rip City every year. I like that they do it. I think it's a nice homage to Dr. Jack and to the team's history. I like that they've got the plaid, the Rip City script across the chest appears to have a reddish plaid print across it. Like I like that they do this head nod. I like that they do it. But they had jerseys that were very similar to this last season, very similar to this, and they were good. They were fine. And then Nike wants to update and get a new one. I understand I understand the cycle, right? Every year, teams are going to get 2 new jerseys, a city edition jersey, and that's what these are. These are your city edition jerseys, and then maybe another one, like another alternate, and then some teams get to do a throwback one depending on some criteria that I don't quite understand. Some teams get to do a traditional jersey. So like every team gets 2 or 3 new jerseys every year, and it's because it fills up team stores and people buy them, and like they're fun. And so you want the PDX carpet jersey, and you want that funny Oregon Brown jersey that they had a few years ago, or that gray Ghost of Christmas Past one they had like 6-7 years ago now. You get it. And perhaps you are the type of fan that every year says, cool, I'm going to buy a new jersey. I have 6 Dame jerseys in my closet, and I love this freaking team, and I can't wait to buy a new one. And I think that's a cool way to fan, and I'm not poo-pooing that. I know that these aren't for me. Like, I know the new jerseys aren't for me because I don't wear jerseys. I'm not rocking them. I'm just not rocking them. Even of my favorite teams. Like, I have a Carolina basketball jersey. Someone basically found it and gave it to me. They said, hey, this dude is selling a really nice like Carolina basketball jersey from your era, from the 05 era of basketball that you really loved. Go buy it, or I'll buy it for you and then you pay me back. But like, I don't really wear jerseys. I'm not a jersey guy in the arena. I don't even wear that Carolina jersey when I go to Carolina games. Like, it's not for me. I don't know this because I'm not plugged in with. I don't have enough Gen Z connections, but like I don't feel like I see young people wearing basketball jerseys like the sort of like high school and college age generation. Does Gen Alpha wear jerseys? I don't think Gen X wears jerseys. Like, this is for like a certain sect of fans that isn't like, I don't think it's generational or whatever. But but Nike has to do it, right? Nike has to do it every year and make it happen. And then here's the other thing, and this is, I think, the actual issue. The way jersey production works, and I've talked with members of the Trailblazers organization about this, is that it takes several years for these to get through. Several years for them to get through. So usually you're on about a 36-month out for getting jerseys. So the Blazers are working with Nike, and they're like 3 years ahead. Maybe a little less. Maybe sometimes you turn it around in 28 months, 24 months, 22 months. But like, you're several seasons ahead when you're designing these. So you can't really hit on like the beautiful zeitgeist of something that's like really relevant right now. You're kind of hoping that the design and the homage that hat tip that you're doing resonates. And so the Blazers have kind of just do what they do. They have this is like, if nothing, I think this jersey looks pretty good, and I think on the court it's going to look pretty good when NBA players wear it, and I'm not going to have a problem with it. I'm saying, hey, they wear their cool Rip City jerseys tonight, great. But like, in terms of just like, do we need this? No, I think we're cool on it. And I'm not even sure the Blazers are allowed to run it back. They might have to get a new jersey. And what the league did, and it looks like across the board, a lot of teams did this. They said, instead of designing, not too many teams took like a crazy new risk. Denver did a little bit, Boston did a little bit, but like a lot of teams, I'm looking at the Brooklyn look. Certainly the Blazers look, the Pacers look, a couple others. It's like, these are basically jerseys they wore last season, but slightly updated. These are familiar jerseys from a year ago, but a little bit different, like a slight difference in whatever. I think they're pretty simple, but I think if you do more, you endanger yourself of just like having done too much. So here's where I land on the jerseys. I kind of like these. I have no problem with them. I know they're not made for me. That's all good if they're made for you. I hope you enjoy them, and I think they're going to look good when NBA guys wear them. We don't need this many. we don't need this many. We don't need new jerseys every year. We don't. We certainly don't need subtly updated jerseys every year. We've moved beyond it. I understand the merch train is going to keep on coming regardless of my opinions, but we don't. We've moved beyond it as people. The Blazers have great jerseys. One of the great advantages over the franchise is that they have excellent jerseys. Their base jerseys are some of the best jerseys in all of sports. Keep it simple, stupid. That's what I think. A titan in the industry walked away today. Adrian Wojnarowski announced his retirement from the sports reporting world. It's going to have implications for how you get your Blazers news. Let's talk about that to close the show. First, though, I want to tell you about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. And look, right now, you act quickly. As you hear my voice, make sure you act quickly, because you've heard me talk about FanDuel a bunch. It's America's #1 sportsbook. But right now, basically for the end of this week, I got something different for you. Now through September 22nd, you are listening to Thursday, September 19th show. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket. So we're heading into the third week of the NFL season. You could make your $5 bet on FanDuel. Watch weeks 3, 4, and 5 for free with a free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You just need a YouTube TV base plan. You'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. Blazers games are going to be available on YouTube TV. If you're thinking about making the switch and you have access to FanDuel, now is the time to do it, because you could get in on all of this. All you need is a Google account, current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sports book. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers as we continue our smorgasbord of an episode. We're bouncing around. On Wednesday morning, Adrian Wojnarowski, some 25 years in the sports media game. I believe he said 37, but some of that was before I knew him, when he was writing for like the New Jersey Star Ledger and other places. But about 2 decades as a major force, as a national media persona, announces that he is leaving ESPN, getting out of the sports reporting world, and going to become the general manager at his alma mater, the St. Bonaventure Bonnies. He's going to St. Bonaventure. A general manager is basically like someone who helps get recruits to the school and helps get NIL money, like big money donors connected to the school. And if Woj is good at anything, it's knowing people and having phone numbers. My man's got a deep Rolodex. He probably doesn't use a Rolodex anymore, but maybe he once did. But this has a ripple effect for the NBA, for sure, and have a ripple effect for the Blazers that I'll get to in a moment. First of all, Adrian Wojnarowski changed the way that newsbreakers cover sports. He became this all-encompassing, every news story goes through me type of force that existed before him, but not to the level because of the way digital media works. Certainly there were big, powerful reporters prior to Adrian Wojnarowski, but in the modern digital age, there was no one like Woj. He set the tempo. He freaking brought Shams up in the game as his mentor. They broke off, have a blood feud, and now are the biggest rivals. Across the sort of other sports, there are folks who are in some ways emulating what Adrian Wojnarowski has done. When ESPN published the story that Woj was leaving, they had their 3 biggest sports news breakers from the other sports, from college football, baseball, and the NFL, write the story, a triple byline, as kind of like a salute to how powerful and special Woj was. I don't love what Adrian Wojnarowski turned the news broker world into. I've met him a handful of times. I haven't seen him in a few years, but when I was on the beat, like, we had a relationship because he's everywhere. He knew who I was because he's everywhere, right? I'll tell this story. One time he was at a Blazers practice and he walked in and said, "Hey, what's up, Woj? What's up, Mike? We're chatting." There's like, it's Blazer practices, and it's not heavy media contingent. So it's like me and Joe Freeman and Quick, like maybe nobody else, Casey for sure, but like maybe nobody else, maybe the four of us and Woj, there's maybe 5 people in there. And someone else walks in who doesn't know Woj and knows who he is, but doesn't know, they haven't met. I forget exactly who it was. And he goes in there to whoever it is, the reporter comes in and Woj goes to introduce himself, and he goes to introduce himself to Woj, and Woj says, "Hey, nice to meet you, Adrian." And I was like, "Dog, your name ain't Adrian. Your name is Woj." But it was like a funny moment where it was like hearing an entity name themselves as something you don't know. But what I do know about Woj, as in my interactions with him as in a professional setting, is that he is deeply competitive. Deeply competitive. The reason that he became the great news breaker and news broker that he was is because he wanted to. He wanted to dominate the industry unlike anyone else before him. The reason he created the Shams Charania in his lab is because he knew that it takes a special type of personality. He met Shams, who was willing to, and able to do it, and he said, "Here's how it's done," and he created a monster. But I don't love what it's become. And I think it's so all-encompassing. And by that I don't love what it's become, is that like stories of a certain import go through news brokers. That's who breaks them, right? Very, very, very rarely it does do smaller folks get the big news. Like people break news stories, but the big news goes through the brokers. And because it goes through the brokers, it gets filtered a certain way. I don't love that. You might not be old enough to remember this, or you just don't recall it. But when Woj, back in the day, when he worked at Yahoo Sports, his deeply competitive side and his somewhat vindictive side came out very obviously in print. People would get under his boot, and he would write pretty scathing columns, takedown columns. Not only would he break news and give you some insider information, but he would write pretty scathing opinion pieces about how the inner dealings of the NBA work. He eventually got away from that, stopped writing, started being mostly a dude who tweets and does a little bit of the television stuff, briefly at Fox Sports and then later at ESPN. But he created this world in which like news gets brokered. News gets filtered through. News from a certain viewpoint goes through people who break news, and those people basically report one side of the story, and then you are left to guess which side of the story they are reporting and why they're reporting it, and it becomes this, it takes a lot of media literacy, and then folks without a lot of media literacy just like don't get it, right? They don't get it as well, and it becomes a little bit messier. And then like the anonymous sourcing and the obsession with having insider info and presenting everything you have as like this like secret scoop, and I can't tell you who told me this, and I'm occasionally guilty of this now, but it became such a normalized practice under Adrian Wojnarowski's reign. Dominant reign. Nobody could do what he could do. ESPN is probably going to have to hire Shams because like who else could do that work? It takes a special skill, types of connections and like I'm not poo-pooing the work. Like the reason that Woj became the dominant force because he was the best at it. He created a lane and then dominated the space for 20 years. How this relates to the Blazers though? Okay. Real quick, this is like the 29-minute mark of the show. This is and here's some actually like a Blazers stuff that isn't just Jersey stuff. During the Damian Lillard trade saga, at the very end of it, when Dame was in Milwaukee and not specifically in Miami, and a big story came out on ESPN about how it went down, and nobody had a closer look at how the Blazers operated during a trying summer than Woj. And he importantly put Joe Cronin's name in the headline of the ESPN story. Joe Cronin doesn't exactly have a lot of SEO juice, right? Like putting his name in the headline was a choice. Joe Cronin has more SEO juice than me, but like the juice is Damian Lillard, Miami Heat, Milwaukee Bucks, right? And this was Joe Cronin, Portland Trailblazers. This was very clearly the view from Portland as written and as penned by Woj. And it was very plain for anyone with a level of media literacy to see that this was how Joe Cronin and the Blazers front office wanted us, the public, to view their side of the story in what was a messy divorce from Damian Lillard. They chose their guy. They chose their guy that has all the cred, all the power, all the juice, Adrian Wojnarowski, because that's what most organizations do. They choose Woj. He's the guy who will tell this story. He will be the one who brings the facts because he's got the bona fides. When he says it, it's true. So if he says it, it's true. Woj is gone. How will the Blazers, should they find themselves in another rocky situation, or I don't even know the damn thing was rocky, but it ended messy. It was messy ending. Even if they did well, the breakup was messy, undeniably. How will they launder that information to the public now? How will it come out? Because it's inappropriate for the team to write a insider type story, and typically those stories have not been over the last 15 years or so, have not been the stories that local media has told. It has gone to Woj first, under Neil Olshey and Joe Cronin, and then the good reporters locally can kind of fill in the blanks from there. How will they do that? In some ways, the legacy of Adrian Wojnarowski is that now teams have to figure out another way to launder news to the public through a filter that they deem worthy of filtering. Best of luck to Woj. There won't be someone like him. He created a thing. He was a force, an absolute force. And on a personal level, a nice dude. Incredibly competitive professionally, but on a personal level, a really nice dude. I think it'll be interesting to see in the post-Woj world how a big Blazers story gets to us. I will pay close attention. I probably won't peel back all the layers on the show because I don't love doing that. But I encourage you, dear listener, always think of why we are learning the things the way we are learning them. And if anyone taught us to be wary of the why, it was Adrian Wojnarowski. Bombs away. All right, that's going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow's show, as mentioned, we'll close out the week with another player preview. We're going to do two of them, Tease and Tumani. That's Matisse Thybulle and Tumani Kamara. Come back for that one. That's what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, and also on YouTube. The season is a-coming, and I hope you are along for the ride. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.